Okay, it's Thursday, and Thursday is sort of a visitation slash community service type day. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of go over a little history. Visitation traditionally was not to go just visit with people and see how they're getting along and to catch up with them. Visitation used to be like a home catechism class that the preachers would go and visit from house to house, and the purpose of it was to have like a catechism with the family and especially the children, to make sure that they were learning what they needed to learn and coming up in the faith. So today I'm going to have a little catechism with us based on the parable of the sower. Now that's in Matthew 13, verses 3 through 9. A farmer went out to sow his seed, and as he was scattering the seed, some fell on the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it had not much soil, and that sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched because they did not have much soil. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked out the plants. And then still other seed fell on good soil where it produced a crop. All right, here's our catechism based on this. It would be 4 questions. So I'm going to do the 4 questions that we would use as a catechism based on this parable. So if I came to visit you, we would sit down, we would read that parable, and then I would ask you these questions. Is there any part of your heart that is so hard the seed of God cannot enter? And if so, will you allow God to soften your heart where it is needed? And we would discuss that. Is there any part of your heart that is so hard that the seed of God cannot enter into it? And if it is, will you now allow God to soften that part of your heart so that the seed can enter? Then we would go to number 2. Do you find that you are quick to receive the seed of God, but you cease to care for it at the first sign of difficulty? Now, if so, will you allow God to increase your sense of commitment to overcome the difficulties? So, are you someone who quickly says, I will do it, or I will accept that, but then as soon as there's a little difficulty around it, you back off and you can't stay committed? If you find that that is part of your life, if so, will you allow God to increase your sense of commitment and the ability to overcome the difficulties? And then number 3, do you find that you have received the seed of God, but you allow the cares of the world to grow alongside the seed, and that will eventually choke it out? If so, will you allow God to set you free from the cares of the world? Do you find that you receive the good news or the seed of God, but yet you allow the cares of the world to grow in you along with that seed, and then eventually the cares of the world choke out the seed of God. Well, if that is so, will you now allow God to set you free from the cares of the world? And then last, we would say, do you desire that the seed of God that has been planted in you to grow? Do you desire that the seed God has planted in you to grow and bring forth much fruit? If so, will you allow God to nurture and guide you as the seed brings forth its fruit? Is it your desire that the seed God has planted in you to grow and bring forth the fruit that God has intended for it to bring forth? This would be our catechism in the old traditional visitation. Makes you kind of long for small talk and just talking about the weather. These are serious questions, and they're all based on the parable of the sower. Is there any part of your heart that's too hard for God's seed to get in? Do you find that you quickly receive the seed of God, but then you don't stay committed very long? Do you find that when you receive the seed of God, you also allow the world to grow along with that seed in you, and then therefore choke the seed? And if you're willing to allow God's seed to grow, will you make a commitment to allow God to nurture and guide you so that that seed can bring forth the fruit that God has desired for it? I'll see you in church Sunday.